Okay, real talk. Your CASA articles can either be 3 years of you just ticking boxes and trying to get through it, or it can be an incredible launchpad for your career. I've seen it go both ways, so if you are starting your articles or you're already knee-deep in them, here are the top mistakes I've seen people make, and in fact that I've made myself, and how you can avoid them. If you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Maddy. I'm an eligible CASA, an ex-Big Four, and now I head up the finances for a US tech startup. This is a very controversial opinion, but my articles at EY were some of the best 3 years of my life, which is weird and crazy. I do know this. I understand. I see you rolling your eyes. And if you had to tell first year Maddy that, she wouldn't believe you. Like flat out, she'd be like, mm-mm. But the very fact that I was able to make what could have been the worst 3 years of my life into some of the best came down to very specific and purposeful choices that I made early on in my articles. And these choices not only made my actual auditing articles experience a lot more pleasurable, but also they provided me with a pretty incredible career quite early on. So without further ado, let's chat on what not to be doing so that we can set up your articles and your post-articles experiences for success. Let's get into it. The first, and I think the biggest mistake that people make, is doing the bare minimum. For those of you who haven't started your articles, let me set the scene. And just FYI, I did my auditing articles, so that's what I'll be talking about. In your first year, you're probably going to be put on some big client, be expected to do a lot of crappy work and work a lot of crappy hours, and you're going to get told what to do by someone who's barely older than you. And honestly, some of the work that you do is going to feel very, very silly. And then the cycle repeats again and again because you put on new clients and it kind of all looks the same. So for me in first year, the idea of doing this whole thing for 3 years was like hell on earth. But I think the fact that articles are 3 years long made me really reflect and be like, I cannot spend the hottest 3 years of my life being sad about my job. I need to find a way to enjoy this and grow because this is unacceptable. And so what a waste of 3 years if I'm not going to find some enjoyment or some value or some growth in this whole experience. So from about halfway in my first year of my articles, I made the proactive decision that I'm going to be a very, very good trainee. And what that looked like was that I just took on more responsibility. I said yes to things that I thought would help me grow. So doing more complex sections. I helped my managers a lot more. I helped my other team members a lot more if they were struggling. And ultimately, I just tried to really push myself so that I was the best trainee I could possibly be. And not only did this result in me getting above peers in each of my performance reviews, but by pushing myself to think outside of the box and learn new skills, I really, really grew as an employee. So I know articles are draining. Hear me out. I know. But if you're just scraping by, doing the bare minimum, showing up late, you're wasting this opportunity. Articles is like this giant playground where you get to make mistakes and you get to be bad at things and you get to ask questions and learn, and you can really explore territories that you didn't know about before, but you need to use it as that opportunity. So if you do the bare minimum, you won't learn anything, but also if you ever wanted to pivot from audit, you're not going to stand out. The next mistake is not making friends or connections. Now, because many people don't necessarily enjoy the whole articles experience, they go full on mole mode and put their head down in the ground and just try to get through without really interacting with anyone. This is a terrible, terrible idea. And quite simply, because if you're not making friends in your 3 years of articles, you're going to be so lonely. The most beautiful thing about articles is that you're surrounded by hundreds of people that are going through the exact same thing as you. So if you're having a really cruddy day and your manager's being mean or whatever the case might be, I bet you someone else is going through the exact same thing and they can empathize. And also, by not engaging, you miss out so much on wisdom, on career advice, on support from people not necessarily in your audit teams, but maybe across departments, maybe partners, managers. Relationships in your training office matter a lot, and I'm not talking about the taboo ones. So don't be the person who avoids networking events. If your training office is like, hey, we're doing an event on Friday, you should go. You should go, and not just go, you should meet someone new. You should be like, okay, today I'm going to say hi to someone I would never have spoken to. And that's you connecting. When I talk about connecting, that's what that is. Networking really is just putting yourself out there, even in a very small way, just being like, I exist. And that's great. It's tiny, but it makes a big difference. And I'm also not saying this as someone who's especially extroverted or gregarious. I'm saying this as someone who's never felt like they fit in with the rest of the CA community. But I really realized during my articles that there's no time for that. you will find common ground with anyone in your training office, and that common ground probably is that you are all working extremely hard, and even just that is a huge comfort, I think, to have. So one of the best decisions I ever made was to make effort with my peers. Not only did it mean that I had this very supportive community, but also I've made lifelong friends, and that's something that I am so grateful for. Another point on making connections, especially if you're wanting to move outside of audit, is to not narrow yourself in terms of auditors or partners in audit or basically audit in general. You definitely need to start looking to branch out. For example, I had no interest in staying in audit after articles, but I really wanted to work in tech, which is pretty uncommon in the CA space. So if I had to say this to a manager or partner, they wouldn't know the first thing about where to look or who to speak to or how to get there. So in order to combat that sort of limitation, I surrounded myself with people who are building tech companies. As mentioned before, I did do part-time work on top of articles with a tech startup, and that enabled me to meet investors and founders and engineers and people who could basically say, Maddy's an expert in finance for tech startups, you should hire her. And that's pretty much how I got the job I got now. Making connections sounds like this vague and scary thing, but what I really mean when I say it is that you just need to branch out into new things, and in that way you can meet someone who could potentially introduce you to someone who can introduce you to someone. If you're not interested in audit, say you're interested in finance, start small by finding immediate connections that are in that space. Maybe it's someone you studied with. Start up a conversation with them on LinkedIn, ask how they're doing, maybe they can meet you for coffee, and just touch base. They're now a connection. Then, once you build that connection properly, you can ask, well, do you know anyone else in your space that might be able to introduce me to this person or this job or, that sort of thing. That's the way of thinking. A connection doesn't have to be someone you're extremely close to. It's just someone you can vouch for. They're a great person. They're easy to work with. They're very switched on. They're very sharp. They're very proactive. All those things. It doesn't have to be this crazy deep connection. That's not at all what I mean. At the end of the day, it comes down to intention and being proactive. Making connections is something that is entirely in your control, and it's essential for career building. Mistake number 3 is something I've spoken about ad nauseum, but it's not upskilling outside of audit. And obviously this is mostly for those of you who want to leave audit, although it's always good to upskill. If you know you don't want to stay in audit, you need to start upskilling now. I see it all the time. People finish their articles, register with Psycha, get their CASA, and then expect to move into something like corporate finance or tech or something that's completely different to audit, and are shocked when the doors don't open for them. But here's the thing, if you haven't built up the relevant skills outside of audit, you don't stand out at all. There are thousands of CAs, and a handful of those CAs are really going to have taken the initiative to be the best at whatever field they intend to be in. And if that's not you, then you don't stand a chance. Sorry, this sounds so hectic. If you want to get into corporate finance, you need to be better than best at Excel. You need to know how to do financial models at the very least. If you're interested in tech, you need to know tech stack. I've spoken about this, but you know what I mean? You really need to understand what the field is that you're going into. You can't expect the CA to just get you there. And you don't need to be doing this for 5 hours extra a day. You just need consistency and strategy. And on this topic, I'd say the other thing that kind of bothers me is when someone is like, should I do this course, or will this course guarantee that I get XYZ job? People, there is no such thing as a guaranteed job anymore at all. Doesn't matter whether you have a PhD or master's or whatever the case might be, nothing is a guarantee. And secondly, this economy first and foremost demands that you're able to demonstrate your skills practically. So a course doesn't guarantee anything. I know tons of people, including myself, who've done coding courses. Does that mean I can code like an engineer can? Abso-freaking-lutely not. So if you have the choice between doing a course and doing a side hustle wins every time. Getting practical experience is your number one. And then on this vein, I think a lot of people will say, but I don't have enough time in my day to be doing a side hustle. I'm very toxic, I think, when it comes to this. I love working, and I'm also one of those people who's like, well, I worked 80 hours a week and I did a part-time job and you can do it too. I think it's not for everyone. I do realize this, and that, I don't know, maybe prioritizing work to that extent is a bit extreme. I will say that. But if you're one of those people who's like, I don't have enough time in my day, but you're going to Brauhaus every day after work for bezzes, for beers, for drinks, I don't want to hear it. You do have time. You're just lazy. Okay, rant over, love you. Mistake number 4 is not asking enough questions. And this one is huge. So many trainees are scared to ask questions because maybe they'll come across as dumb, or they just want to seem super independent. Please, guys, ask questions. You are a trainee for a reason. It is a training ground. You need to ask questions to learn. So ask the silly questions, ask the hard questions, ask all the questions in between. This is your time. Please don't be afraid to put up your hand and ask a question. And what does this look like in practice? On a personal level, never feel afraid to ask questions about your performance. So in a performance review, always ask your manager, what can I do to improve? How would I receive a better rating? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And I know this sounds really scary because it's often hard to hear maybe constructive feedback about yourself, but it's very important for your career growth. And then just on an audit basis, always asking questions about your section or understanding why a workbook is tested in a certain way is so important, because oftentimes a trainee, especially in first year, you'll roll forward a workbook that someone's done in the prior year. They didn't understand it, you don't understand it, and now you're just rolling forward work that really doesn't mean anything. You always need to understand what's going on. So if you don't know why something is being tested the way it is, ask your manager or ask your third year, ask the questions. Mistake number 5 is focusing too much on the board exams. So in second year, I know APC is a big deal, and it is a big deal. It definitely is a big deal. It's, obviously one of 2 board exams that you need to qualify. But with the time you're given, you will be absolutely fine. You don't need to stress so much about studying outside of that. You're definitely given enough time to study. And what it really comes down to is that you are practically very good at what you do so that you can give advice, because that's what your APC is essentially testing. It's your competence in your work. It's not just on a technical basis, but can you understand a situation and provide practical, valuable feedback? And that actually comes from doing your work and less so about cramming in their studies. And specifically speaking to those who haven't passed the ITC or APC exam this time round, you are absolutely fine. You're not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. You will pass and you will become a CASA. Maybe it will take a bit longer, but that is absolutely fine, absolutely valid. I mean, for goodness sake, I've got my exams and I haven't even registered. Honestly, some people's path to the CA just is a bit different. Just thought I'd throw that to the wind. Anyway, point being, at the end of the day, they're just exams. They don't speak to your capabilities. So rather focus on building your actual technical expertise than stressing over these exams. They'll take care of themselves and you'll be much better off for it. Mistake number 6 is avoiding responsibility. This is something I saw a lot in my articles, and it's obviously definitely coming from people who aren't enjoying the experience. If you're not enjoying it, you're going to put your head down, you're not going to speak to people, not going to make friends, but you're also not going to ever step up in your role. But the problem with this is that if you're constantly hiding from the hard stuff, whether it be speaking to clients or taking on harder sections or just stepping up as an actual leader in your team, you'll never learn and you'll never grow. And that's really going to hinder you later in life, because the expectation is, well, you're more senior, you should be able to do all the senior things, except this time you haven't learned how because you never ever took on the responsibility. The fastest way to level up in audit and in your career in general is to run towards the hard stuff and to take on the challenges. And this time you're allowed to make mistakes. In these 3 years, you can run towards the challenges and fail super hard, and that's fine. Later in life, things will be less forgiving. So with this in mind, I have a goal for all of you watching. I want you by third year to set a goal to be auditor in charge of at least one engagement. Auditor in charge obviously being the supervisor who oversees the whole audit. I believe in all of you. I want all of you to be excited about taking on a team, to be leading, to be reporting to your manager, partner, and not being afraid of failing or doing a really bad job at the beginning. It's such a rewarding experience to lead a team, and it's so essential for career development. So please take on the challenge, and when it happens that you become auditor in charge of your audits, please pop a comment below and let me know, because I want to hear how it's going and how it's made you feel to be leading a team. Okay, challenge accepted. Mistake number 7 is a very simple one, but it's one that I very much struggled with, and it's documenting your competencies. As if it's not enough that we need to do 2 board exams and work really, really hard in our job, we also need to get these competencies to sign off as a CA. And as annoying as it is, as frustrating as it is, it's just one of those things where you gotta be like, okay, fine. Guys, there's a template that Psycha has on their website. I don't know if they still have it. I'm basically a fossil by this point, but use it regularly to track your competencies. And what I mean by that is, if you know that something's on that list that you have to achieve and you've done it, write it down. I tested intangible assets and this showed this competency. Write it down so you won't forget. It makes it so much easier when you come to submitting your whole little spiel. I promise you. Mistake 8 is staying in toxic teams. Hard work is expected. Overtime is expected. You're not always going to get along with your manager. You're probably not going to get along with a lot of people in your teams. That's expected. But if you're being mistreated or overlooked, in a lot of situations I saw a lot of managers bullying trainees, that's unacceptable and you need to speak up. Chat to the HR representative, chat to your manager or whoever is independent in the situation, because articles should be tough, but not at all traumatic. And I think this kind of goes hand in hand with not asking questions, but unfortunately, if you don't ask for help, no one will know that there's ever been a problem, so they won't know how to help you. Please, guys, if you're in the situation where you are not feeling treated well at all, and it's become so unpleasant that you don't even want to go to work anymore, you need to speak to someone and they will move you out the team, or you'll have some mediation. I've seen it happen. But rather do that than just stay and be really sad. It's not okay, and I don't want that for any of you. And the last mistake number 9, my favorite mistake, and the one I will talk about all the time, and it is never saying no or not setting boundaries. This is a big no-no for me, people. There's this constant pressure as a trainee, because you're junior, to always say yes to things. Oh, my manager asked me to work overtime for free. Let me say yes. Oh, I must do this insane task because I was asked this. Let me say yes. I need to prove myself. I'm too scared to say no. Unacceptable. I think there's a serious nuance in being a team player, but then also having firm boundaries. And you need to be able to tell the difference between which is which. For example, I had a manager that I absolutely adored. She was just so lovely, such a good people person, such a lovely manager. And if she asked me to do extra work, say take on a trainee's workbook or something, I would do it. And I do it because I trust her, that she's not exploiting me, and also it would make the team's life easier. Overall, it's just being a team player. But there were some other managers where they didn't really bother to develop a rapport with me, so they never treated me like a person or someone who's valuable. It would just be like, do this. No, you need to work extra time. I know you know these managers. It's the ones who set tiny budgets and then are like, well, we've gone over budget, so you need to work extra, even though you were very efficient. That to me is the nuance here. That's unacceptable. In those cases, absolutely not. If the budget is small and you did all the work you possibly could have done in the day and you weren't lazy, please do not give up your time for free. In most cases, the manager's expecting you not to ask for overtime that's paid. So be like, sorry, I will work that extra time, but I do expect that it will be paid overtime. Thank you, bye. I'm dead serious. I think it's a balance thing and it's a nuance thing, right? Some days you're going to have where you're not that productive during the day. In those cases, I was very happy to take on extra unpaid overtime because I didn't work that hard during the day, and I should have. In other cases, I worked so efficiently in my allocated hours that of course I'd have to be paid overtime because it's obviously an unreasonable budget. Those are the nuances. Learn them, know your boundaries, say no. Yeah, honestly, I think that's the biggest mistake here that made the biggest difference to my career. Even now, if something's unreasonable, it's not that you have to be mean about it to your manager or whoever's my boss or whoever's above you. You don't need to be like no, but to be like, hey, this is a bit unreasonable for XYZ reason. That's such a skill, honestly, because it can feel like such a scary thing. But learning to articulate that is really important, and you can definitely start that in your articles. Anyways, that is all from me. A lot of this is completely anecdotal, so totally from my experience, but also then obviously observing my friends and peers in my training office and just seeing what worked and what didn't work. But this has definitely come from a place of me having started with the worst possible articles experience. I have spoken about it before, like the worst first year, and turning it into one of the best articles experiences. So I 100% believe in all of the mistakes I've mentioned, but anecdotally, if you have your own experiences or things that you think are the biggest mistakes that people make in articles, or ways that people can improve the experience, please let us all know in the comments. But otherwise, thank you all for watching this video. It's been a lot of fun just yapping. Okay, bye. See you next time.